Now, as we mentioned, CBS News has teamed up, and we're happy to say this, with Twitter for tonight's debate. Throughout the evening here on CBSN, we'll be showing you tweets and real-time data on your screen. On the bottom of the screen, you'll get to see various trends about how the candidates are performing and which issues are getting the most attention via Twitter. To the right of your screen, you'll see a get-curated list of tweets from political analysts and viewers like you. To get in on the conversation, tweet us using the hashtag DemDebate. Now, as you would imagine, most of what's trending on Twitter right now has to do with the Paris terror attacks. Here to talk to us more about that and what else we'll be seeing throughout the evening is my friend Adam Sharp, Twitter's head of news, government, and elections. Adam, it's great to have you with us. Adam, tell us what has happened in the last 24 hours, comparing where the conversation on Twitter was leading up to this debate and what happened after news broke in Paris.
The conversation in this campaign has gone through a fundamental sea change. Taking a look right now at the share of conversation between different key issues. In the top two positions on this chart that you can see over here on the monitor or on the video wall behind us, foreign affairs, 41%, national security, 33%. So between them, 3/4 of all tweets about this campaign right now are about these two issues, driven almost entirely by the attacks in Paris yesterday. To give a little feel of what this was like before, energy and the environment, now down to 7%, had been the #1 issue on the eve of a major climate conference there in Paris. Now we're looking at how this switch occurred. Right there at the beginning of the chart, about 24 hours ago, all those issues muddled together at a very low volume of conversation. It was a Friday night here in the US after all. But then those news flashes started coming in, and immediately the campaign conversation turned to foreign affairs and national security. We planned for this debate to be an opportunity for participatory democracy, for people to not just lean back and watch the debate, but use this as an opportunity to stand up and have a conversation with their neighbors about these issues. Now people are turning to Twitter also as a place to grieve, to stand in horror, and to talk about these global affairs, and those conversations are now crossing.
Speaking of conversations, it occurs to me, first, 2 points. One, there's really a distinction without a difference, foreign affairs, national security. This is all about Paris and the attacks. So it seems to me, point two, this creates an atmosphere of anticipation for what all three candidates are going to say, first about what happened in Paris and what they would intend to do about it if they became President of the United States.
Absolutely. I think all three candidates probably come in tonight knowing that this is the main topic on the agenda for viewers as expressed in this live public conversation on Twitter, and this is probably going to be the top topic on the agenda of the debate. All three candidates took to Twitter last night when this story was breaking to share their responses to it. Martin O'Malley first here, heartbreaking news from Paris, praying for the country and its people. You see that little hyphen OM at the end, signifying that this is a tweet that he typed himself. This isn't something you leave to a press secretary or a staffer to speak to. The candidates wanted to take these devices in their hands and express their thoughts the same way as so many millions of others did on Twitter last night. Bernie Sanders also taking to the platform last night, saying reports from Paris are harrowing, praying for the city and the families of victims. So all three candidates jumping into this public conversation, knowing that this is where people were forming a community and forming a conversation as the story was unfolding.
Adam, let's bring into our conversation Steve and Linda. So the candidates are going to have to do more than that tonight. Those original initial sentiments, valid, important, heartfelt. But Linda, I'm guessing from your vantage point as someone who's been through this process before, the candidates know they're going to have to bring more to the game than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the risk of sounding hackneyed, it's clearly a game changer for tonight. The question is it a game changer for the race writ large? I think that starting off, having not seen anything from the candidates yet, you have to imagine that Hillary Clinton has the advantage here, having been Secretary of State, having been an integral part of developing some of the national security policy for this very administration. I'm sure she's going to have a lot to say.
Steve, this has to be a moment for not just those of us who are preparing for the debate, but those who are going to be taking the questions and giving the answers. They've had to shift their war room preparation as well.
Well, there's no question. I mean, this is the story of the day, of the week, of the coming weeks. And you have to lead with this. This is your question. These are the questions for the candidates. This is going to be an opportunity for voters to see if this is a moment they can picture these candidates as president of the United States. It's going to be a big moment for Hillary Clinton, but I think more so for Bernie Sanders and Governor O'Malley, people who don't talk a lot about foreign policy, don't talk a lot about national security, and in the case of Governor O'Malley, somebody who has virtually no experience in either of those. So they really have an opportunity here to show Democratic voters and voters across the country what they can bring to the table against somebody like Hillary Clinton, who I want to point out in our latest poll from this week, 53% of Democratic primary voters feel very confident in her ability to handle an international crisis. Perfect question for this kind of situation. And obviously, this was done before the Paris attacks. Only 16% are very confident in Sanders. So Sanders has a big hill to climb here.
And Adam, I want to talk about something that we'll see throughout the night and help our audience understand what it means and what it may not mean. We're going to be analyzing throughout the evening volume of conversation that candidates are generating. But that doesn't always mean if you're generating the most conversation, it is uniformly good for you, correct?
Correct, but it is showing who is driving the conversation. And so right now we're looking Hillary Clinton about 60% of the conversation, Bernie Sanders 37, Martin O'Malley 3. This actually is starting to level out a bit more as we get closer to debate time, because now people are building their anticipation for that contest between the three candidates. Earlier this morning, when Paris was dominating the headlines, Hillary Clinton was up at over 70% of the conversation for many of the same reasons that Steve was articulating, that people were sort of looking to her as that main candidate to watch with regards to this story. Now, that doesn't always mean good things. In other debates, we've seen that sometimes the most talked about is because they had the biggest gaffe of the night or something. But what's been interesting in several of the Republican debates in particular, where we've had those early panels, the so-called undercard of those who were not polling high enough to be in the primetime event, it's actually been a pretty good indicator coming out of the debate of where we go from here. Because for those who are at that 1 or 2% level, just being part of the conversation and driving the conversation is the first step. And so if Martin O'Malley puts points on the board, if he's able to articulate a message that people respond to and talk about and helps dominate some of that water cooler conversation on Twitter through the night and into tomorrow and Monday, that would be an entry point that we'd be able to see develop in real time, and that the CBSN viewers at home will see develop in real time across the bottom of their screen.
Adam Sharp, thank you very much. One thing I want to know, looking at those numbers real quick, 60, 37, 3, they're not exactly the same, but they're roughly consistent with the polling data we see right now in this race. Doesn't necessarily mean they're analogous or they're there for the same reason, but they do kind of reflect each other.